I have a confession. I have a slight addiction to Reddit stories. From Call Me Chris to Charlotte Dobre to Smosh. I watched them all. Or I'm making my way through them at the very least. There's a lot of Smosh. We're still working on making our way through all the Smosh. And so I decided, well, I need to make more content. Why not make the content that I'm obsessed with watching and that I would want to watch? So here we go. We're reading some Reddit. We've got a theme. We're sticking with the disabled theme today. That is the theme of the day. Yes, let's go. I've been disabled for 19 years now, and I want to share the story with people who will probably understand. I'm turning 39 next month, pushing 40, and I have nothing really to show for it in terms of financial stability because 19-year-old me went and got PTSD. I'm sure some of you on here know that when you have an invisible disability, in particular, you have to deal with the judgments of people who don't think you're disabled at all. I lost a lot of friends because they thought they were more qualified than the X number of people with PhDs who have evaluated me over the years. And as I'm sure a lot of disabled Americans here know, Social Security payments, being what they are, a lot of time translates into one needing additional financial help. I don't know a lot about the American Disability Act and stuff that side, but I know that in the UK it's a mess over here, and I can only imagine it's just as bad, if not worse, over there, as most things in medical care tend to be. After a decade of receiving help, we got notified a couple months ago that we make too much for food stamps, followed last week by a letter that they made a mistake. We've made too much for the last year and we now owe them $6,000 back. Federal law says that it doesn't matter who made the mistake, they're still going to be squeezing blood out of a turnip, so to speak. I hope the situation. Enjoyed that turn of phrase. Never heard of it. I like it. My wife, who's disabled as well, and I spent years manoeuvring ourselves into a financial position where we were almost doing alright. We managed to nickel and dime our ways over the last decade to build up our credit scores and to be able to make things work well enough that our lives weren't one financial crisis after another. COVID, then inflation happened, and we were grateful that COVID rules extended our food stamps for a few years because we all know that the price of groceries have shot up too. But while we always knew that help would eventually end, we never expected to tell us that we would be facing financial ruin because they neglected to account for $20 a month. All of this because they didn't account for $20 a month. They freely admit that it was all on them, but it doesn't matter. And now I'm trying to figure out ways to sell my body on the internet just to be able to keep going financially. I know that unfortunately, I am not the only person with a story like this. I firmly believe that the systems put in place to help disabled people are actually designed in a way that keeps disabled people in a poverty cycle. It keeps them dependent, and it's truly a systemic failure regardless of what country you're in. There are some that are better than others, and then there are some that are a lot worse than others. But regardless, it's all not good. It could all be a lot better, but they just don't fix it. It's really frustrating, and it's one of the many reasons a lot of people, especially on the younger side, will push and push and push themselves until they are broken. Because there is no other choice. You don't earn enough. You won't earn enough on disability to be able to support yourself just on that alone. You either need extra financial aids or you need a job. Some disabled people can handle a job, no issue. Good for them. I'm personally not one of those people. I can handle part-time, and any more than that, and it's a whole problem, and it just ends up pushing me into making me far more ill than I actually am. And I know that it's a sad story that I know that a lot of disabled people also have. It's hard to get a job anyway, regardless of any disability or anything that makes you different. It is very difficult to get a job in today's job climate. It is also then has an additional layer of it being hard to get a job as a disabled person, especially if you have a physical disability or a disability that, even though the act is invisible, impacts you in a way that a physical disability would. For example, PTSD or some autistic people that it's very obvious that they are autistic because they aren't great at masking, which sucks. That is a thing that you have to do, but that is a thing that we have to do. And then once you get the job, it's really hard to get workplace accommodations. For example, my current job, I don't have a lot of workplace accommodations that I could really do with. I can't bring my assistant's dog in because I work at a food store that isn't pet friendly. Not granted, she would be allowed in as a customer, but from a working standpoint, she can't. Also, she would just get in the way because it's too small of a store. I can't use my walking stick if needed when I'm there, but it's a small enough store that I can use. There's usually something I can hold on to if needed. I have to lift heavy weights. That most of the time is fine, but sometimes if I just carry it slightly wrong, it's not fine. And then you also can't sit down on the job. And having invisible disabilities is incredibly difficult. It carries a different stigma than physical disabilities or visible ones. Because some physical disabilities are actually invisible. You don't see them. So, like, if it's in your brain, like PTSD or anything that they can't outwardly see, so fibromyalgia, autism, in my case, Addisons Disease, people can't see that most of the time unless you're having a really bad episode, in which case you often, able-bodied people will also just have the stigma of, oh, you're making it up, or you're being dramatic, oh, everybody has a little bit of autism. And it's like, no. Just because you like something doesn't mean you have autism. My mum loves ducks and owls. She has a bigger duck collection than I do. That doesn't make her autistic. She just has hobbies. It's a hobby. I think we as people also tend to have a cycle of comparing ourselves to other people, where we think we're supposed to be at certain ages and benchmarks, sort of like we're supposed to hit by certain points in our lives. And the idea of that all of us are at different places. There is no right place to be at a certain age. We have individual goals that we'd like to achieve, but there is no, by 30 I should have XYZ because other people have XYZ. We all start at different beginning points, so we'll have different endpoints. You don't need to be where somebody else, especially as a disabled person who has a much bigger disadvantage to our peers than able-bodied, so there's no point in comparing us to able-bodied people. And it's just a trap of comparing yourself. Having a heavily disabled sibling has started making me feel different about heavily disabled people. Okay, now before literally anything is said, I want to say that I'm not ableist. I do not hate disabled people whatsoever. I just need to talk about this, and as far as I know, this is the best sub for it. So I, 18 male, have a sister, 23 female. I've never been friends with her, and I've just said that it was siblings being siblings, or whatever else you could say it is. But as I grew older and smarter, I started realizing just how annoying she can be, and not in the siblings annoy each other kind of way. Maybe it's just her, but she's always looking for someone to feel bad for her or bringing up that there is stuff that she can't do. Just to preface, she's on the heavier side of disabled with cerebral palsy. No fine motor skills really. Can use a wheelchair and stuff, but can't lift a fork, walk, or use the bathroom on her own. Talks too slow. Like, I was talking about playing Expedition 33, a reaction-based RPG, with my dad at dinner, and she says, oh, I can't do that because I'm disabled. Now, as a one-off thing, sure, it's not that bad. But this was at least the third or fourth time she has made this exact comment about this game. And I'll say, like, we get it, but it keeps happening. This isn't the only example, just the one I can think of. Or she'll constantly talk about one professor who didn't adapt his class for her and talk about it constantly. Then, when I say, yeah, my teachers aren't always great either, just move on, you don't have them anymore, it'll turn into a problem because he wasn't being equal and it's been 3 years since she's had him. Maybe I'm just being petty, but she started making me more annoyed at heavily disabled people. Like they're taking up time out of other people's lives so they can be constantly taken care of. Especially when it's parents and siblings who didn't sign up for it and have to spend hours every day taking care of them. My parents have expressed this exact thought. Maybe I'm just petty, or she's a different case, or she's just my sibling, but I need to express this just because my parents wouldn't understand my frustration. Don't mean for this post to be rude. If it is, just need to express myself. Oh boy, I have a lot of opinions about this. As a disabled person that plays video games as well, start off just on the disabled advocacy part. Yes, it is incredibly frustrating when adaptations aren't put in place for you to succeed. And I can understand being still frustrated a few years later because perhaps if adaptations had been put in place, maybe she would have gone better or in that class or had better grades or found it just easier to be at the same level as everyone else, because as disabled people we are constantly having to fight for rights and accommodations in order to have the same level of access and the same baseline for education, work, even medical, anything. And as she is apparently on the more severe end, so higher support needs, it is something that you could look into, or your parents should look into, is getting a carer for her to help her beyond just you and the family, if that isn't something that they have already, because carers fatigue is a thing. Now, I can understand the siblings not signing up for it. That's just a cost of being born into the family, luck of the draw. The parents did sign up for the risk of having a disabled child. It's something that all parents have the risk of, and how they handle it is a whole different matter, but they did technically sign up for the chance of having a disabled child because they chose to have children. Because it was handy that it was a game that I actually have and can play and have been playing, so I can speak through experience. Expedition 3 has quite a few accessibility options. So you can enable the camera shake, turn it off or on. I personally have it on because that doesn't affect me. Some people, it can mess with their visuals and equilibriums and stuff. Stuff that big fancy words. And you can also change the camera movement and adjust how that is for like in battle. So it will make stuff harder to read. It can affect things, but it helps with motion sickness again. So there's 2 options there that will help with motion sickness stuff. We also have automatic QTEs. So quick time events during combats. You can set it up to be automatically successful, which would be something that would be helpful for someone with cerebral palsy who might struggle with the quick time events. For me, I have it off, even though I could probably very much do with it on. But that's my little challenge is, hey, we're going to try and do this thing. We also have stuff to do with the images, which can be useful for colorblindness. Mine isn't bad enough within this game that I found it particularly helpful, so I turned it off. But you have messed with the HUD scales. You can put it in colorblind mode, and there is 3 different versions. There's the one for green, the one for red, and the one for blue. And I had to play with all of them, and I found that for me personally, mine didn't seem to affect within this game. Some games I do have to affect them, which is why some of my games look a little bit funky when compared to others because I have the colorblind modes on. We also have the option to have a persistent dot for exploration. I personally found this a bit overwhelming, so I didn't use it. I didn't need it. But there are options in mind. You can also mess with the subtitles and make them bigger. For me, medium seemed to be work fine for where I'm at, of how close to my screen I am. If I was playing this on PlayStation, it would be large because that would be further away because I can't read and I can't hear very well. You can also change your key bindings and like the layout of how they all work to make like some people struggle pressing certain buttons fast enough, so you swap them around. There is so much stuff that you can change within this game to affect stuff. You also have settings of how strong the game is. With the severity that they say that Opie says that their sister is affected by it, probably not the game for them. But you can find other games that she could do if gaming was a thing that she was interested in. And yes, it's sad that she can't play the game, but if it was something she was interested in, she could watch you play it or watch someone else play it. Hell, watch me play it. Why not? I'm not good at it, but you get the story. It's an amazing story. And that's why Let's Plays exist. That's what I tend to do with a lot of Resident Evil games, because I really struggle with the puzzles. Despite being amazing at puzzles in D&D games, soon as it's in a video game, can't do it. And some horror games I just struggle with because of my own conditions. So I watch other people play it so I can pick and pause or recover and then go back if there's something that sets off an issue, like makes my heart rate go too fast because there was a scary jump scare and it actually got me. That's what Let's Plays exist for. It's also great accessibility of, if you can't afford the game, watch someone else play it, because Lord knows video games are very, very expensive and you just can't afford most of them. I can't. A lot of people can't. You can't afford every game that I want to play, so I save up. And we find other methods. Have you maybe thought to, I don't know, encourage her or something? Your outlook sounds incredibly negative. Sure, I know people with disabilities can be annoying. ASD here. Hi. Hi, you do. But I also know neurotypical people who have this whole thing about not saying what they're thinking for some reason. If your sister's getting annoying, then tell her that. But add a positive spin on it and ask her if she wants to at least try to play the game. Encourage her to try and tell her to stop putting herself down. And be careful of the things you say or things that you might regret. You say that you are starting to get annoyed with heavily disabled people. But the next disabled person you meet may be your firstborn or even yourself. It could happen. Your sister could be you one day. You could end up in mobile or as an amputee, or any manner of disease, accident, or autoimmune disorder can alter you from normal to heavily disabled. You, like everyone else, are one of the unfortunate hit to the head, one rampant UTI, one infected cut, one cancer diagnosis, one wrong twist of your neck or spine away from being heavily disabled. What then? Or will it be different when you're disabled? I know it's frustrating to deal with someone with disabilities, but remember, just because you're able-bodied now doesn't mean your parents won't be having to wipe your butt for you tomorrow. You sound young, but learn to humble yourself. Oh. Yes! Yes, I agree. Yes, thank you, I understand. I suppose I haven't come to full terms with the things you end off by saying, and yes, I know I'm still young and that my viewpoints in life are still developing. Thank you. This one does actually help me change the way I view this. Thank you for having the self-awareness and maturity to respond the way you did. It's understandable you feel the way you do, most definitely. Part of becoming an adult, though, is having compassion and tolerance regardless. It's hard being the sibling of a disabled person, but I'd say it's preferable to being disabled yourself. R/truth my chest again. 3 years after becoming disabled. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. Nearly 3 years to this day, as a 19-year-old, I was at my friend's birthday party when I smoked what I thought was weed. It wasn't. It was some synthetic plastic shit, spice/chronic. I blacked out after a head spin and then woke up to a 4-hour flight away in a hospital with no idea what's going on. Turns out I jumped off the 5th story balcony, snapped my left humerus, 4 vertebrae burst fractures that damaged my spinal cord, and a fractured pelvis. Over the next 6 months of rehab, it changed me. I went from being a 19-year-old that didn't think about others to someone that can emphasize and understand other people's problems. All I want to do is help. I won't be able to walk again or go to the toilet normally, but in the last 3 years I got engaged, got into a wheelchair national tennis academy, and I'm about to start a business that helps young people with disabilities accept themselves. I'm proud of who I've become. I wouldn't change anything. That's so sad that happened to you, but it's so great that you've turned that into a good thing, if that makes sense. You are doing amazing things that you probably wouldn't have done before. It's sad that you had to go through that, and honestly probably could be kind of traumatizing, so make sure that you also are getting the help that you definitely need to deal with it and any lasting effects that came from it mentally. But it sounds amazing that you are helping young people with disabilities and starting up your own business. That's amazing. We've got a few edits. Thank you everyone for your kind words. This is my experience, and for it to resonate with so many people is amazing. I am, however, not advocating for becoming disabled or taking away other people's experience with disability and how challenging day-to-day life can be. This is my experience and my truth off my chest. They said the thing. Edit 2. Good lord, the possibility... No. The positivity on this thread is truly humbling. Thank you everyone for the questions and awards. But yeah, I'm happy that happened for them. That's a nice one to end on.